Hey everybody, today I want to share some thoughts today that I had just the other day as I was scrolling through Facebook, as I sometimes do. I was scrolling through and I found a tweet. I know, weird, right? I'm reading a tweet on Facebook. In fact, it was really funny because someone had like screenshotted the tweet and then posted it on Facebook. And I don't remember who did it or who it was that had tweeted this, but the comment was something along these lines. It was, I have to think that if we were to just totally level the playing field, right? Take away the wealth from all the wealthy and give everybody in the entire world $75,000, that it would not take very long before those who had been wealthy before would be wealthy again, and those who had been poor before would be poor again. And that's a sentiment that I've seen many times and that I generally share. But then I read some of the comments on that Facebook post. There were hundreds of them. And most of the comments were along the lines of, there's no way that's true, especially if we could just if we could tear down the oligarchies that the wealthy have used to build up their wealth, and if we could, really equal the playing field by shrinking the economy down to this level. And basically everybody had all these reasons why basically the wealthy are wealthy because of their connections, because of luck, because of some sort of systemized oppression that's going on. And while all of those things in various situations may have a grain of truth, I look at that as a huge, just massive cop-out. For those who struggle financially, and I know many of you probably are at some degree of, you look at wealthy people and you say, you must have cheated somehow, or you must have lucked out somehow. But the numbers just don't add up, right? When we actually look at statistics of millionaires, most millionaires, almost all millionaires, inherit very, very little of their wealth. So it didn't come from inheritance from a rich parent. Many of them come from a regular, normal, average background. Most millionaires come from an average background. I come from a very average background. So it's not that they're born and raised up with substantial opportunity. So what is the major difference? There are basically two things that I think that cause wealthy people to end up attracting wealth, and most poor people, I won't say all, but many of those who are not wealthy to fall back into that. And here's a little bit of justification for why I think that would happen. What happens when somebody who's not already wealthy, which is almost always, because most wealthy people don't do this, but what happens when somebody who's not wealthy wins the lottery? What happens within, on average, 1 year? They're usually bankrupt. And in most cases, if you look at actual statistics, I can't remember again the exact numbers. There was a cool study that I saw on CNBC like a year ago about lottery winners. But those who win the lottery, on average, within 1 to 3 years, are in the same place they were financially before, if not worse. So why is that? And why is it that if something happens to a wealthy person and they lose their wealth, they tend to return to wealth fairly quickly? What happens? The truth is that I do believe there are two things that are going on. The first one is a certain set of skills. Most wealthy people over the course of their life have acquired a certain set of skills that help them to become wealthy. In some cases, some of those skills may involve doing things that are not honest. Most millionaires, that's not the case. Some, yes. And oftentimes they're found out and there are things that happen, right? But some people get away with it, right? But in most cases, it's not that. There's a set of skills that they've developed. The first of those is learning how to live within their means. You cannot become wealthy if you spend more than you earn. You can't do it. But most people today do not have that mentality just ingrained within them. Most people figure that I can spend today and that I will pay for it over time. As long as I can afford the payments, I can afford the item. Wealthy people do not live that way. They don't. There are other skills that wealthy people develop over the course of their lives that leads them to be able to quickly develop wealth again or earn more wealth over time. And those are skills that we talk about on this channel. I couldn't really all go into all of those skills in a single video. But the second one I think is even more important than the skills. And this is what takes a perfectly average person or below average person or a person who grew up in below average circumstances and enables that person to leave that environment and become something greater and become wealthier. And that is a mindset. There is a mindset that wealthy people have that they're able to achieve because of things that they overcome, right? If you, over the course of your life, have overcome something, have overcome a circumstance, have been able to achieve a certain level of success, once you attain that, then you break through all of these barriers. We all place barriers upon ourselves. We, in our business, all the time refer to this as upper limiting. This is a concept that we got from the book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, of just upper limiting. We all have a tendency to place a limit on ourselves. This is a limit on the success that people like me, can have. People like me don't become the President of the United States. People like me don't become senators. People like me don't run businesses. People like me don't make $1 million. We put those limits upon ourselves. They are entirely self-imposed. And then when we see other people break through the limits that we put on ourselves, the natural, normal, just the thing that we do to prevent cognitive dissonance, right? To be able to live with ourselves, to have our brain not just freak out, we have to write a story, a narrative for that person. That person must have some level of skill that I don't have, must have some extra edge that they got because of where they were born or who they're related to or what relationships they have, or that person must have cheated somehow and done something that I just don't have access to do. We write those narratives. It has nothing to do with that person and how they achieve their success. We write those narratives ourselves. We write those because if it were not for those narratives, we would have to face the fact that we could be achieving what they are and we're not. Now, this is not to say that those who are not wealthy are somehow lazy or are somehow weak-minded. It's a totally normal mindset. And in fact, there are many who are not wealthy because of a lifestyle that they've chosen, and they achieve other pursuits. And that's fantastic. I know a lot of people personally who have chosen to go into the teaching profession nobly, knowing that wealth is never going to be in their future. Many who have done that, who choose to employ the skills that the wealthy employ, still are able to live a relatively comfortable and stress-free lifestyle because they live within their means and they just recognize that their means is going to be a lower number. And that's perfectly fine. And they're able to achieve great things and break through upper limits in areas that are not finance. But that's what it is. What we need to do is recognize what our limits are, the limits we impose on ourselves, and then find a way to bust through those limits, one at a time. Every time you break through a limit, you're going to impose a new one on yourself. You probably won't be able to recognize quite what it is. But I have limits that I'm imposing on myself as to what people like me can and can't do, or will or won't do. And when I recognize those, I look for an opportunity, whenever it's something that I maybe do want to go after, to break through that limit and remind myself that I don't have to put limits on myself. You don't have to put limits on yourself either. So if the world were to do that, right? If we were to totally level the playing field, do I believe that some people, the same people who are already wealthy in most cases, would come out ahead within a year? Yes. Do I believe that some people who are already behind would quickly put themselves behind once again? Yes. Do I think it's because of a character flaw or lack of intelligence or laziness? No, not necessarily. I think that it's because of those two things. A set of skills that anybody can learn because people like me are teaching them for free on YouTube and on the internet, and a shift in mindset. Something that now you know you can do, but that now you need to go out and do for yourself.